All right, hello everyone. Very glad to be here today. So we have two distinguished guests today, Sami and Sami Mohammed. And then I want this program be as interactive as possible. So if you receive questions, I think this program is going to be more interesting. One request is please post your questions on Q&A because I see a lot of messages posted on chat. I may miss your questions, so please post your questions on Q&A. All right, so I will post the link for the application later, so during the program, so no worries. So if you allow me to get started, so I would like to start with, I mean, there is this a little bit, I'm hearing here and then some pessimistic views on the economy and the market. So Sami and Sam, you guys are on the field, in the field. So I'm just curious how you are seeing the market for data scientists. Let's get started with that.
Sure, I can jump into that one. And I guess we'll try to make the name similarity easier when we start referring to each other. We'll try and make it work. So I feel like, yeah, there's like concerns about the economy, maybe unemployment going up, but I still see, for example, my company at C3 AI is hiring. Other companies, big tech companies, medium-sized tech companies are still hiring for data science. The one trend I've noticed personally is there's more of a bias to senior applicants, people who already have a couple years experience as opposed to new grads. So I do find for new grads it's tough, but personally I'm optimistic that that'll actually start getting better. We already passed the bottom. I feel like 2023 was the bottom and we're in an upward trajectory again. That's my take on it.
Very glad to hear that. Yes,
Uh-huh.
yeah. Go ahead, please, Sam.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Yeah, as Samuel mentioned, many people like have this kind of feeling the market going down. A lot of like many of companies like they're doing layoffs. But actually, I'm seeing also in the same time there is many of them basically very interesting technology and different rules. They're like more opening and more hiring. Like I see, as Sammy mentioned, like for all size of companies like startups companies, small, mid-size, large-size companies, they hire, especially in data science roles. So if you talk about data analysts, data scientists, especially now with machine learning and AI emerging, so machine learning engineers and data engineers, data architects, so too many roles, even too many basically new titles, two titles are also emerging. So I think even though many kind of other rules, like different companies, they kind of suppressing some of the rules, but I think for data science, machine learning, AI in general, there is like a lot of hiring, and they're looking for actually candidates all levels. Maybe as Sammy mentioned, like there's kind of a little bias for more senior level, but still many of the companies really interested also in the new grads. So honestly, the way I see it, I think it's promising, and I think it will keep growing as we go.
Yeah, very glad to hear that again. Perfect. So now that you also mentioned there are different titles for, so when we first started with this company and then started talk with people on the field and then also academia, we were simply saying, referring to the data workers as data scientists. Now we have so many different titles. There is some differentiation between the things and jobs, tasks people are doing. So again, I'm curious about so the relevant skill set was also changing. Maybe new skill sets are being required in the market. So what do you think about the top skills that nowadays to be competitive in the market? What kind of skill sets should we be equipped with now?
Oh, thank you so much. Maybe I can start with this. So if we talk specifically about data science rules in general, so I think to have Python programming skills, this is a key with the Python most famous libraries like, Panda, NumPy. Also to have skills on how to basically do data processing, involving like data cleaning, how to handle missing data outliers. In addition to that, I think there is some kind of emerging skills also. I think like, AI, machine learning, how to learn classifications, model evaluations. Um, I think this is one some of the key skills. In addition to that, I want to mention beside the technical skills, there is also soft skills, as example, problem solving, communication and collaborations, basically how to have the ability or the right skills to explain technical topics to a non-technical audience. So I feel this is like, yeah, most of the key skills that, any candidate he need to basically to sharpen to be successful in this domain.
Thank you, Sami. Semi, do you have any additions?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything Sammy said. I feel like the term data scientist is kind of like a Swiss Army knife, and nobody really knows exactly what it means, and every company kind of uses it differently. But it just touches on how do you get value out of data? Data manipulation, maybe using SQL, which is a super common tool you need to go gather your data, do some processing. Pandas and NumPy and Python and those sorts of things, super important. And then maybe you do A/B testing or more product analytics and metrics, and you're trying to gather insights. Or maybe you're doing more predictive modeling, more machine learning. And then you can go even further in that end, where a data scientist could be somebody who's actually more almost like a software engineer, where you're now a machine learning engineer, they call it. So it really varies widely, but I think, yeah, they all just fall under this umbrella that we kind of broadly refer to as data scientist.
Yeah. So when we apply for a job, it's very challenging to, acquire skill sets. It may the set of the skills may be different from one company to another, maybe from one position to another. But my next question is, how do you? I'm asking you. So how would you keep yourselves updated? So once you get started in a company, working on a project, maybe a little bit more comfort zone. Maybe just being content with what you're doing. I'm just curious. Are you guys doing something additional to keep your skill sets updated based on the changes in the market?
Yeah, sure. Maybe I can go first here, if you don't mind, Sammy. So basically, for me, if in this domain, it's really it's fast-paced area, and basically every now and then there is a new technology coming, like either like incremental improvement or it could be disruptive technology. So it's very important to keep updated with the trends and what's going on in the industry. So for myself, honestly, I try first to attend many of the conferences, workshops, training sessions. At work also there is a lot like of training sessions and basically what we call like brainstorming sessions like in the same domain. So I try to attend these events because it really keep me informed on what's going on and where we are going in this domain. And in general, also it helps to connect. Connections, I think, is very important with CME, SME people in this domain. So subject matter experts and data scientists. This is very important. Beside that, I would say to keep up, like one of the key things I look to, like to just make sure I always keep my skills up to date. I look like at different companies, like from like mid-size, even small size, big size companies. I look at their career website and look at kind of jobs they are in data science domain, and I look at the qualifications and the requirements for the job, what kind of skills they're looking for, what kind of tools they're looking. So this is a good source of information there, because these companies, especially the big ones, they're doing a project not only for like the current period of time, but they're doing it for the next 5-10 years. So when you keep an eye on what kind of skills they are requiring or looking for, this has helped me a lot, like to keep up with basically the industry. Yeah. With that, I pass the mic to Sammy.
Yeah, I feel like the half-life of knowledge in our industry is very short. After maybe 2-3 years, that's maybe one half-life. So you have to constantly just be relearning and learning different things. Part of it is, I think, just at work, trying to make sure you always at least partially prioritize learning in your work. Try and take on a new project or a new responsibility where it's just brand new to you, you don't have expertise in, or maybe not as much, and you learn a lot from that. And thankfully, I do find in the field, like teams are supportive of that. Everyone in data science kind of has that goal in mind. So it's very supportive, like, hey, be productive, but also try new things, sharpen your skill sets, because there's so many new skills you constantly have to learn. Other ones I find that have helped me is just work with really smart people because you will osmosis through them. That's kind of what happened for me at C3. I definitely felt like I learned just from everyone I worked with a ton, and that helped me out a lot. And then another one that I like is just keeping up to date or following maybe on social media thought leaders, people like Andrej Karpathy for machine learning, LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever it is, follow them and you'll gain a lot of cutting edge knowledge and insights just from those brilliant people in the field. So I like to do that.
Thank you both. So by the way, again, reminding the audience, please feel free to ask questions. Use Q&A. If you have any questions, post them, and then we'll try our best to address them. Thank you. So now I would like to get into a little bit more into maybe details. Now we have some idea about the required skill sets, and then how we can keep ourselves, as we apply to jobs or as we're on the job, how we can keep ourselves updated. But when it comes to interviews, interview for jobs, so I'm not asking what questions you guys are asking. I'm just asking what kind of technical questions, maybe in general, as people applying to jobs, we are going to be, dealing with. So can you give us some idea about that, please?
Yeah, maybe I can start with this one. First thing I'll preface is it really depends on the role, kind of like what I was saying before, where data science is this huge umbrella term. The role you're applying for might be analytics, where you use more SQL and Excel and even dashboarding. And then on the other end is machine learning engineer, where heavy on Python, heavy on ML theory, and those sorts of things. So figure out what that role is covering. And then from there, I mean, I think Python is a fundamental concept that is covered often. Probably SQL as well, right? Can you write SQL queries on the fly to solve some type of problem? And then I think most people, what I like to see is just general problem solving. And that might be by walking through a machine learning example. Company is trying to do XYZ. It involves machine learning. How do you think about that problem? How would you approach it? What are the trade-offs? And do you really understand like the technical details behind the implementation we're going through? So that covers a bit of it, but then there's even more that you could ask, for example, on A/B testing, if it's more of a product analytics type of role at a big tech company where they can do A/B testing. So I hope that covers a bit that I think most interviews will cover, but again, depending on the role, there could be even more biasing different parts.
Thank you. So I have one follow-up question, but maybe let's hear Sami Mohammed. Maybe you can also add some, and then I have a follow-up question on that.
Yeah, sure. Actually, to addition to what Sami he mentioned, and basically it really depends on which roles and take it from there. So where I can deep dive in and ask more details. But in general, the general knowledge for data science and some of the common questions also can be asked in the interview, and they started from there. So basically, I started from basically high level, and then from there I measure like basically the candidate level, and from there I decide if I want to go deeper, or at least like give me kind of some metrics of or like indications like what kind of experience. And also depends, it's really in the job description. Are we hiring like for a new grad, or is it for someone expert, or is it someone like senior level, or so it's really depends case by case. But in general, we ask a question related, as example, like different in Python, different types of data structures, in data science, like what the difference between, or explain with examples like overfitting, underfitting, bias variance, correlations, p-values, confident intervals, many other things also in machine learning AI, like model accuracy evaluations. We do also like for classifications, what the difference between supervised and supervised. So this is kind of general questions, and also after that we'll have to give like specific scenario where we measure like the candidate problem solving skills. And we start, I love to see like when the candidate, how they approach the problem. One of the things I follow is like the STAR model, which is stands for situation, task, actions, and results. So I love to see how like the candidates, what kind of framework they use like when they approach problems in general. And also, I always ask some question related to challenging in data science, some of the pitfalls and how the candidate will be handled. As example, if they observe like there is a data bias, or they observe there is a data privacy security issues, what kind of tools or approaches they use to solve these issues. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. So I see some questions coming, but before those questions regarding the interviews, so for data scientists, machine learning positions, so we learn statistics and machine learning and Python, SQL. So I have students coming from computer science field. Some students are coming from non-computer science field. So one of the questions in general we receive or we ask is, how deep a data scientist should go in coding? So at what level the coding questions are coming? Are they coming at the lead code level questions or more simpler, more task-oriented questions? So that's something that I was wondering.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I can jump onto this one. Just a quick answer. The answer is it depends on the role. I mean, when I was interviewing, for example, just to give names, I mean, it's fine. Like, let's say a role at LinkedIn, there was no Python. It was SQL, kind of like A/B testing, metrics questions. I didn't get asked Python questions. Meanwhile, at C3 and then at other companies, it was like super Python heavy. And I think it more or less correlates with what you will actually be doing in the job. Will you be writing software and almost production level code, or will you be doing more analysis, analytics, these types of things, or just working in a notebook? So the expectation will vary there. For example, in my role, it's very similar to a machine learning engineering role. We use Git, GitHub, common software engineering tools very often. So there was a pretty high bar, I'd say like software engineer level bar for coding. But again, that's just one example, and others, they won't even ask those types of questions.
Thank you. Thank you. So I see some questions are asked, so I'm just going to group the questions into three. So one question is, as a new graduate or as someone that is new into a field, how can we increase our chances of getting an interview? So this is one question. Related question, does it help to have an MS degree in data analytics or data science to increase the chance of getting an interview? And the related question is, so we talked about data science picking up. So what kind of entry-level positions do you think are being more available nowadays?
So I can maybe start to answer like maybe the first part of it, like how basically to increase the chance to get an interview. How can we improve this probably? I would say I always like I would like to start from the job description and look at the qualifications and try to create what I call like a traceability matrix. So try to map these qualifications and the job requirements to your skills in the resume. So see, sorry. So try to see if there is really, if you have all the needed skills for a job, are you good fit for this job? And see if there are missing skills that you don't have at the moment, then I think at that point you need to work on this for the future jobs, because you can attend, as example, boot camps, training courses. You can have like as a side hustle, like your own kind of smaller project to work on to improve this, because most of these skills really common between many of the data science jobs. So I really would start from there. Yeah, look at many of the job description, map it to your skills. Whatever you're missing, try to learn it and practice, have hands-on on it, so you can add it to your resume. And I think, yeah, this is a good point to start. And I think other things I would like to do, like there is many of the boot camps and like mock interviews out there. There is even apps like as Dr. Murati mentioned, like apps that help you to practice for these interviews. And I think it's very important to understand like for each job, there is hundreds, if not thousands, of applicants there. So you need also to stand out. Like you need to basically, if you have like a tools, mention this in your resume as example, you have like TensorFlow, PyTorch, or like you have Python programming, SQL. So make sure to highlight these skills and tools there. And they try to sometimes it even tune your resume. Like let's say you have all the needed job skills, like as per the job description, but in your resume you have too many things there. Like you talk about is maybe data science in two different domains and too many. It tries basically to tune your resume, like to make it um, highlight or like focus on these skills required in the qualifications. I think this is will give you a better chance to get an interview. One more thing I would add here. I think it's very important also to have a connections and utilize these connections. And nowadays, thanks for like social media, LinkedIn, meetups, groups, conferences. Those really great points to meet people, especially SME in the field and hiring managers in many cases. So connections is the key also. Thanks.
Thank you. So Semi, would you like to add on this? So again, how can we increase our chance of getting an interview? And then does it help to get a master's degree in data science?
This is a very close to home problem for me because my spouse just finished a master's in science in data science analytics, and we're going through the exact same problems. And I mean, I think most people, the problem they're facing from what I can see in the chat and I've experienced and I see my spouse experiencing, it's not even about the interview, it's about getting in the interview. The filter from application to actually talking to a real human is extremely harsh from what I can tell, from what I'm seeing with my spouse and from what other people are anecdotally saying. So then how do you get to that point? I think Sammy brought up some great points, and I would just summarize that as you look at the job description, does your resume scream that this is a match for the job description? Right? Imagine or any other field, you want somebody with these set of experiences. Does your resume match that very closely? The more closely it matches with skills, with experiences, tools, and so on, just the better your chances. Another thing I also find is the how fresh the posting is. Right now, I think most people see postings get hundreds of applicants within a week. So you want to make sure you're actively looking and find postings that came out in the last day or two. Otherwise, the queue basically gets filled up very fast, and they've already shortlisted, in a lot of times by 2 days, a pool of candidates to interview. And then I think the last part is, okay, how do you get past the automated part? Because it seems like such a daunting numbers game. I think the point about networking is spot on. See if you can find anyone in industry who you can get to know, who will maybe be able to be like, oh, I do know a role that might be a good fit for you. And then that way you can kind of avoid this brutal filter of a faceless resume, but you're now a face and a personality that goes along with your experience, and a hiring manager can review, and then you can start the interview process. So those are, I guess, a few tips that I would recommend, but I definitely see, yeah, it's tough even getting to the interview, and I see that's what most people experience.
Yeah, thank you, Sammy. So Clemently, so I mean, asking a question about which I find interesting. So imposter syndrome. So going through so many phases of training, like getting a master's degree, having a good background on the field, I mean, acquiring all different kinds of skills, but still feeling like I'm not enough. I'm not enough to, apply for this job, or somehow I'm not being successful to get interviews, and it makes me feel bad. So any advices, any suggestions for those of us who are going through that phase?
I can go for that one. I mean, on it, it's very human, and I definitely empathize with that. There's so much to know in machine learning as a field. There's no reasonable way any one person can know all of it. So no matter, for me, it was like, no matter how much I learn, it feels like I don't know anything. I'll find someone who's an expert in something I've never heard of. So it can feel very daunting. I guess one thing that kind of keeps me grounded is having one niche that you know you are particularly skilled at. Maybe I know I'm a very good coder, or I know I'm very good at analytics and distilling insights and presenting insights. And that just comes from, in my opinion, getting wins under your belt. Maybe you do projects and you get some results. Maybe you do, again, it could be your degree, and you go really hard into a course and do your best at it. Or if it's at work, just getting good results from there. I find that helps. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, I empathize with the problem. I think one last thing to add to that is, what is the baseline expectation for, I see the question, like how to gauge readiness. Again, depends on the role that you're applying to. What type of role is it? I always find I have a few resources I like to reference when I'm preparing for data science interviews. One of them is actually a book called Ace the Data Science Interview. They do a good job of just crowdsourcing like 200 questions from real interviews. And I like to use that as my baseline. How much of this do I know? Do I at least know the mediums? And then, you can feel confident from there.
Thank you, Sami. So, Sami Mohammed, do you have any additions to this?
I think I just want to summarize really what Sam has mentioned. So basically, yeah, AI, machine learning, data science in general, it's really wide range like topic. So, and it's really hard to master every a single bit and byte of it. So I think it's very important to basically to focus. So focus here is the key to find like niche where you are passionate about, where you find yourself, like you're more interested in, and then you try just to basically practice in that domain and try to improve your skills in that, and then everything's every day like something new that basically you will see progress in your career. So I think it's very important like to keep an eye what's going on in industry, what the new things there, but then very important also to stay focused, because if you try to do to learn everything and master everything, that will be kind of, it's really tough, and sometimes even like not needed for your job or like the job that you are targeting.
One very specific maybe advice or thing I noticed on that Sammy brought up about the focus. I often find like a pitfall that people breaking into data science do is they try to do a lot of projects or pet projects, image classification, NLP, time series forecasting, and you'll go shallow on all of them. And then you'll maybe put on the resume, but then me as an interviewer, when I see that and I see all these kind of unfocused areas, I mean, I know that each of those areas can go incredibly deep. So if you say you have all of them, to me, it's almost a sign that I know you haven't actually gone deep into any of them. So it probably would be, maybe one recommendation would be to pick one area, go deep in it, keep iterating, find the pitfalls, become like, whether it's forecasting, you really, really know about forecasting, or maybe it's Gen AI. You really, really know about Gen AI, not just created a RAG pipeline and then didn't go from there. So the focus and the depth, at least for me as someone who looks at resumes and does the interview, would be more impressive, because then we can have a conversation about it.
Thank you both. So there are two questions here. I also, whenever I'm talking with people who are thinking to switch into data science field, from time to time I come across with people who are already established in their own career, in their own discipline. So here we have two cases. Like Amit is spending time on software development, a senior person in software development. No software development in and out. And then we have Michelle. She's coming from, let's say, more consulting, more business-oriented, business-heavy industry. So for those of us who are coming from different disciplines, not data science-focused disciplines, so do you have any suggestions, any advice on how we can get into data science field?
So I can start with this actually. So I think if I'm in this situation, I would start again like basically with the star model. I need to understand where I am at, like what kind of skills I have to switch to the data science, what I know, what I don't know, what I need to learn or need to know to be able to make this move, right? So it's really important to evaluate basically your background and what are your strengths in like math, statistics, programming specifically. It could be Python or programming. What are your skills basically in SQL? Other soft skills like problem solving. Also, you need to identify basically the core data science skill that you really be more kind of a master. So, are you focused more to be data analyst or data scientist? So it really depends. Also, after determine these skills gaps, make a plan, like action plan, how to learn it. Would you like sign for bootcamp? Would you take like course online? Attend like training sessions, see what kind of resources and options can basically you can take to fill these gaps. Another thing I would suggest, honestly, like I found out like boot camps, it's really helpful, especially if you work with the groups because you learn from each other. And also there is a lot, it's built like connections, communicate, you learn also teamwork, like communications, collaborations, and basically in the boot camps you maybe you meet someone who got a job, then he can refer you. So I really would like, to basically participate in such activities. uh, and beside that, I think, yeah, if you can create your own smaller project, just basically to demonstrate your skills, I think that will help also.
Thank you, Sami. So, Semi, any additions, please?
Yeah, I think two parts. One, on the resume you apply with, does it show, even if you might not have it, let's say through projects or through courses or through boot camps, have you built up like enough data science / analytics experiences to convey, hey, like I'm a good fit for the role? Because imagine there's a recruiter at the end of the day looking at your resume, looking at the job posting, and they need to justify to the hiring manager that, hey, I think we should interview this person. If they can't do that, they're not going to pick you. And they want to make sure, like, at the end of the day, we're humans. They go to the hiring manager. The hiring manager doesn't go back to me as the recruiter. Why did you give me this candidate? They don't look like they match the role at all. So, A, try to match the role. B, in that step, I see two different ends of the spectrum, like software development and then consulting. Speaking of data science, do like a similarity search, K nearest neighbors of your skill set and the closest data position. For example, for consulting, there are actually a lot of data science consulting positions out there. And that might be your next natural jump where you can tie in some of your previous experiences, add a flavor of data that you did to them, as well as maybe some projects. And you're a stronger fit for that role than if you came from consulting. Going into like machine learning engineering is a much bigger step, and that might be more challenging. On the flip side, the person coming from software development, going into a machine learning engineer or data engineer type of role might be a fairly easy jump where you can just tie in a few concepts, think about how some of your previous experiences were actually data engineering or actually machine learning engineering, and then boom, you're now a strong fit again.
Thank you. Thank you very much, both. Okay, so I'm looking at if there are any other questions from the audience, but while I'm waiting for the questions, and then we have maybe 10 minutes left. I'm just now I'm curious about your daily lives as data scientists. So can you please just quickly walk through us what you are doing in your daily life at work as data scientist?
Okay, I can jump into that one. Right now, like I was kind of preluding, it's a lot more like a machine learning engineer where we're building like production software really on Gen AI. And I saw there was a question on Gen AI. I would say a lot of companies are obviously investing into that a lot, trying to figure out how to make Gen AI be valuable for them, how they can make their own pipelines, all of that. We all know there's a lot of potential and there's a lot of manpower and resources being dedicated to that. On my end, I can talk about, I think if most people are familiar with, let's say, GitHub Copilot or Microsoft Copilot as, let's say, a coding assistant, that's what I focus on right now. At my company, C3, we have our own proprietary platform and kind of coding language, the C3 type system. And there's no data out there that you can take from Twitter or Google or Stack Overflow about this. So the problem is, how do you train an LLM and then create a Gen AI pipeline, the engineering around it, which there's a lot of pieces actually than just the LLM. How do you create something that's useful, that helps answer people's coding questions when they get stuck and they find a bug, doing things like autocomplete? So right now, that's the bulk of what I'm working on. It feels very much like a startup within the company, where we're trying to quickly, find better ways to have a more useful Gen AI product. But yeah, just a bit of an intro of what I'm working on these days.
Thank you.
Okay, so from my side, actually, right now, I'm just recently, a few months ago, like I just moved to more like TBM role in data science. So basically, that's involved a lot of project management, meaning like defining a project scope, setting timelines. Each project has like start date, end dates, and milestones, and basically managing resources and basically the deliverables for each milestone. On daily basis, we have a lot of meetings, many meetings that requires cross-functional collaborations. That means to work with the cross-functional team. They were distributed in different areas. Some of them like in basically APAC, EMEA, North America, different countries, different time zones. So this is also required a lot of coordination and basically early meetings or late meetings, sometimes after 7, 8 p.m. And also my role, it required a lot of technical understandings, like basically if they're team facing an issue, how can I support them? And like if they're facing technical issue, how can I support them, unblock them, and basically work together to resolve it, and also to make sure to avoid it for the future projects. Also, my role include like some of the risk management, like to identify any potential risk. If there is any feature, could be like there is a delay. What can we do to mitigate this risk? How can we basically overcome it? Could be punted. It could be like assign more resources to get it in time. Also requires a lot of soft skills like communication, collaborations, EI, like basically part of my role, like to have emotional intelligence, which is very important to be like emotional awareness and management for myself and others, because many of the meetings, like, we get kind of heated discussions, so people like defend their point of view very strongly, so you need to be able how to manage that and to work as a team to basically to achieve the project goals and times. Besides that, also it's sometimes from now and then I require to do some programming like using Python, but more likely in TBM rule, it's focused more on data visualization and dashboards and metrics and basically performance analysis and how to provide insight to senior managements, basically for decision making. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Thank you both. I mean, yeah, both cases, they sound really, to me, different. They're talking about two different worlds to me, but they both sound very exciting and then, I don't know, demanding, that I would say. So maybe before we close this program, could you please point out, again, you said when you were answering the questions you mentioned and you pointed out, but again, I would like to emphasize this one more time. For those of us who are applying, trying to get an interview, can you please point out one more time pitfalls, any common mistakes we are making when we are applying or sending out our resumes, applying for jobs, getting prepared to receive some interview? So what kind of mistakes we should avoid? One more time, if you could please point them out.
I can start with this very quick. So just to keep it short. So basically, I really would like to avoid basically create kind of this sense of confusion in your resume. So try to make your resume focused and basically try to map it to the role directly. One more thing, avoid to write anything. I would say if it's not really like whatever you write in the resume, you make sure you have the data or the right skill to support it. So because in the resume, like, as interviewer, I will basically deep dive and ask like, follow up questions. So if I found like, someone he said, okay, I know Python, but I ask him, okay, can you explain like some data structure in Python? Maybe simple question like what the difference between, as example, like mutable, immutable, like data structure, like dictionary lists, whatever the question. If find like, okay, whatever in the resume is not true, then this is kind of really bad sign. And many of the companies also, it really can be blocked. Like you can be kind of what we call like blacklist. So avoid to write anything in the resume not relevant or like to your skills or to the job. So be focused and be truthful. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Semi, any again, you can repeat some of the things you said, but could you please again add a couple of things to
Yeah.
avoid?
Yeah, I think it all I hate for it to be that this is the case, but if you're getting filtered at the part where you're not even hearing back from the company, then you have to just focus on the resume. And keep in mind, one of the things I went through with my spouse is, you start getting a lot of rejections and you start to wonder, am I not good enough? Do I not have the right skills? So on and so on. And then the interesting thing is, I talked to my spouse about it, and then we realized, let's say from our program, some people were getting interviews, some were not. If I looked at their experiences face to face, it's like 95% similar. So how can you basically the same experiences, two people, one gets interviews, one doesn't. You have the same skill set. So it's about how you're kind of telling that story, as Sammy was saying. Is it focused? Are you getting it in front of the right people's eyes? With focus, I think one thing is, and I'm super guilty of this, you're like proud of all these things you might have done, but they're completely unrelated to the role. And me, before I went into data science, I was also very unfocused in what I did. I did some more consulting style things, digital marketing. I did some software engineering internships. I did some startups. I'm like, these are all cool. I'm going to put them all in. And then the problem is it's again, it doesn't tell a cohesive story that's relevant to the role. So try and do that. And one thing that I think is helpful is try and get other people's point of views, especially let's say if you know recruiters or people in the industry, data science. See if you can just ask them, hey, can you look at the resume? Do you think this is a good fit? Would you interview this candidate? And then make sure you let them know they can be harsh because people will often just be like, yeah, it's good, even though they might not think so because they don't want to, hurt your feelings or start anything. So seek out that candid feedback. And then, yeah, the last part is, I guess, about more tactically the freshness of the posts. Try and be on it. Find posts that have come out or job listings that have come out recently. And then see if you can avoid the digital application altogether and have a way through a connection. Somebody you know, a friend of a friend, somebody you met at some networking event or boot camp or whatever it might be. And that can help tremendously a lot. So hopefully those few things help.
Hopefully. So does it have to have a GitHub account and then posting your projects on your GitHub account?
First, I mean, again, it varies. For me, I don't think that's a prerequisite at all. Maybe, I mean, I personally don't spend much time over indexing on it just because, again, it's not so much a software engineering role. But if you have a strong one, show it. If you don't, it's okay as long as there's, other things that back up data scientist on the resume. My opinion on it.
Thank you. So, Sami Mohammed, maybe so when we apply for a job and then again the case that you talked about, and then if the application is denied, we said something in the resume that doesn't resonate with what we say. So our future applications, is it the case? Can be denied? Maybe I think Sami.
I think Sammy had to drop.
Yeah, drop. So I was just trying to clarify. So one of the questions was about that clarification. But I think that is we covered a lot of ground here, right? So thank you very much, Semi, and then thank you, Sami. And then I know he got disconnected. I really appreciate your feedback and then answering our questions. And then thank you very much, everyone who are listening and then posting their questions. We are going to be meeting again. We are going to have these kind of programs in the future again. Please stay tuned, and then you're going to hear from us. Oh, Sami is back. So, Sami, we are closing the program. Thank you so much for answering our questions. And then very nice to be with you guys in the same program today. And then I'm closing now. Thank you again, and then have a nice day, everyone. Okay, bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you. This was fun. Bye-bye.